Why do you keep becoming someone else just to feel loved, not appreciated, not respected? Loved in that primal, haunting, addictive way. You don't remember the exact moment it started. That first time you smiled when you didn't mean it, nodded when you disagreed, shrunk yourself just a little to be chosen. But that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because the truth is, you weren't trying to be loved. You were trying to avoid being abandoned. And that changes everything. Carl Jung didn't call this love. He called it possession. Not by demons or spirits, but by projections. Someone else's fantasy, pulling strings you didn't know were tied around your soul. You think they saw you. They didn't. They saw what you could be for them. And without realizing it, you stepped into their story. A story written long before they ever met you. A role carved in silence. A role you were never meant to play. But you played it anyway, because the silence of not being chosen hurt more than pretending. You became stout where you were once fierce, agreeable where you were once grounded, malleable, predictable, safe. All for the illusion of connection. But here's the part no one tells you. The more you shape yourself to be lovable, the more invisible you become. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the very things that once made you magnetic, the mystery, the fire, the wildness, they start to fade. She won't tell you what changed. She might not even know. But something shifts. And the worst part? You'll think it's your fault. You'll wonder what you did wrong. But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being a mirror for her fantasy and started becoming real. And realness, to someone who never truly wanted to see, is unbearable. Later, I'll show you the one line Jung wrote that explains this collapse better than anything else. But for now, let me ask you something. When was the last time someone loved you without needing to reshape you first? Let that question sink in. Because what happens next, when you start to resist the role, is when the real test begins. You'll feel it in the small things. She pulls back. She doesn't laugh the same. Her eyes shift when you speak with conviction. She starts saying things like, "You've changed." But you didn't change. You stopped performing. And now the script is falling apart. She doesn't know what to do with a man who no longer fits inside her myth. So she calls you difficult, cold, distant. But here's what's really happening. You've become unshapable. And the second you stop bending, you become threatening. Not violent, not cruel, just untouchable. And that's when everything turns. Not because you did something wrong, but because, for the first time, you're not begging to be loved. You're demanding to be seen. But the story doesn't end here. Because what's coming next is the moment most people run. The moment the mask cracks, and all that's left is the silence. Not hers, yours. The silence you've been avoiding your whole life. But that silence is where the real man is buried. And he's not here to please. He's not here to perform. He's here to take the pen back. So the question is, will you let him speak? Or will you keep rewriting yourself in someone else's fantasy? Let me show you what happens when you stop chasing the myth and start facing the mirror. But be warned, that mirror won't show you who you think you are. It'll show you what you've abandoned to survive. And once you see it, you'll never go back. Part 2. You thought walking away from her would be the hardest part. It wasn't. The hardest part was facing who you became to keep her. No one warns you about this moment. The silence after the applause. The collapse after the performance. When the mask finally slips, and all that's left is a man who doesn't know if he exists without being needed. And in that silence, something terrifying happens. You realize you weren't in love. You were addicted to being wanted. There's a difference. Love frees. Addiction binds. And what you felt? It didn't make you lighter. It made you shrink. Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You thought she was your destiny, but maybe she was just your pattern. Let that sit. Because once you stop chasing the performance, the withdrawals begin. You miss the version of you that always had a role to play. You miss the pain, too, because at least it gave you something to hold on to. But now, there's nothing. No script, no spotlight. Just the haunting question, who am I without the act? And here's where most people go back. Back to another fantasy, another chase, another performance. They don't even realize it's the same play with different costumes. But you've already seen through it. And once you've seen the trick, the magic's gone. Still, the ache remains, because there's one thing you haven't faced yet. The part of you that agreed to disappear. He didn't do it for love. He did it for survival. The child who learned that being fully himself was dangerous, that speaking too loud, feeling too deeply, wanting too much, would push people away. So he adapted. He became useful, pleasant, needed, and eventually invisible. This is what Jung called the shadow. The parts of you you've buried, but that never stopped breathing. They leak out in quiet rage, in numbness, in shame, in attraction to people who mirror your self-abandonment. And until you meet that shadow, you'll keep falling for the same pain, calling it passion. But there's something no one tells you. That shadow you're afraid to face? It's the source of your power. And later, I'll show you what happens when a man stops running from it and starts integrating it. But for now, ask yourself, what part of you have you exiled just to be accepted? And more importantly, what if that part is the most real thing you've ever had? This is the part the world taught you to hide. But it's also the only part of you that can't be manipulated. And once you reclaim it, everything begins to shift. The women you used to chase will feel different now. They'll seem smaller, not because they've changed, but because you've stopped needing their validation to feel alive. And here's the twist. They'll feel it too. They'll call you intimidating. They'll say you've become distant. But what they really mean is, I can't shape you anymore. And they're right. You've stopped being clay. You've started becoming fire. But this isn't the end. It's just the second threshold. The next part, that's where it really burns. Because to become whole, you'll have to kill the one you pretended to be. And that is a death most people never survive. Let me show you what it feels like to bury the mask and resurrect the self, but only if you're ready to lose everything that was never really yours. Most people think rebirth feels like awakening. It doesn't. It feels like death. Not the kind that ends your heartbeat, the kind that ends your illusion. When you kill the version of yourself that lived for validation, you don't feel liberated at first. You feel empty. You wander through the ruins of your former self. Where once there were scripts, there is silence. Where once there was approval, there is absence. Where once there was a mask, now there is only skin. Raw, exposed, uncertain. This is what Jung called individuation. But it doesn't begin with becoming whole. It begins with burning. Burning every role you played to be loved. And here's what no one prepares you for. You will grieve the man you pretended to be, even if he was false, even if he was afraid. He kept you safe. He gave you purpose. And now, without him, you're no longer sure who you are. Let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever felt alone? Not because no one was around, but because no one ever truly saw you? That feeling is the beginning of awakening. Because when the world stops applauding, you finally hear the one voice that matters, your own. At first, it trembles, it questions, it hesitates, but it's real. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because the world doesn't fear loud men. It fears the quiet ones who have nothing left to prove. You'll start to notice things you once ignored. The conversations that drain you. The praise that once thrilled you now feels hollow. The affection you used to crave now tastes like manipulation. Not because you've grown bitter, but because you've grown aware. Awareness is the beginning of sovereignty, but sovereignty comes at a price. You will lose people, not because you pushed them away, but because you stopped pretending for them. And those who only loved the act will leave when the actor is gone. Later, I'll explain what Jung meant when he said that the individuated man becomes a stranger to the tribe. But for now, understand this. They're not leaving you. They're leaving the version of you they could control. And that version is dead now. Good riddance, because something else is rising in its place. Not louder, not tougher, just real. And real doesn't need applause. It doesn't ask to be chosen. It chooses. It listens to silence without reaching for distraction. It feels pain without needing to fix it. It carries the weight of truth without collapsing under it. But there's a trap here too, and most men don't see it coming. Just when you think you've left the illusion behind, another one appears. Only this time, it's not about her. It's about the new identity you're building. The aware man, the healed one, the sovereign self. And if you're not careful, that becomes your next mask. Because ego doesn't die. It adapts. It will wear the face of depth. It will dress up as wisdom. It will whisper, "You've made it." But if you believe that, you've already started the next performance. So ask yourself again, who are you when there's nothing left to prove? No eyes watching, no one applauding, no mirror reflecting your myth back to you. Just you, alone. Still, the next part, that's where you stop building and start integrating. Because you don't need to become someone else to be whole. You just need to remember the man you were before the world taught you to forget. Are you ready for that? Part 4. Most men think the shadow is their enemy. They're wrong. It's not there to shame you. It's there to show you what you gave away to survive. The rage you swallowed. The boundaries you erased. The fire you dimmed just to be told you were good. But here's the secret Jung knew. The shadow isn't darkness. It's repressed light. Everything powerful, passionate, purposeful, buried under the lie that you must be acceptable to be worthy. And now you're beginning to remember. You're remembering the boy who felt everything too deeply, the teenager who questioned too much, the man who wanted truth more than comfort. They told you to cut him off, to replace him with someone safer, more polite, more manageable. And so you did. But he never died. He just went underground, waiting for this exact moment. And now that the mask is gone, he's speaking again. But this voice doesn't sound heroic. It sounds wild, unpredictable, unfiltered. And that's why most men turn back, because integration doesn't feel clean. It feels chaotic. It breaks rules. It says no when others expect yes. It disappoints the people who only knew the tame version of you. But here's what you must understand. Wholeness isn't perfection. It's contradiction. It's holding both the fire and the calm, the rage and the peace, the need for connection and the strength to walk alone. Later, I'll reveal what Jung meant when he said that real intimacy only becomes possible when we face our shadow. But before that, let me ask you something. How much of your truth have you swallowed just to be loved? And worse, did they ever really love you? Or just the version of you they could digest? That's the cut, isn't it? To realize the love you fought so hard to keep was never for you. It was for your performance. And when that act ended, so did their affection. But don't mourn it. Celebrate it. Because now, for the first time, love becomes a choice, not a negotiation. You no longer offer your soul in exchange for validation. You offer presence. And that kind of presence, it doesn't chase. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't need to be needed. It simply is. And in that stillness, something unexpected happens. She returns. Not the one from before. Someone else. Someone unfamiliar, but eerily familiar. A woman who sees without projecting, who hears without rewriting, who loves without needing to reshape you. And here's where it gets dangerous. You won't recognize her at first, because you're not used to being seen by eyes that don't want to mold you. You're used to fantasy. You're used to performance. You're used to being used. But she doesn't need you. She chooses you. And that difference changes everything. But be warned, this kind of love is quiet. It doesn't flood you. It doesn't seduce you with chaos. It simply recognizes you. And when that happens, you'll realize something profound. You never needed to be healed to be loved. You just needed to stop abandoning yourself. Part 5. There's a moment, so quiet you almost miss it, when you stop reaching for the next thing, the next woman, the next role, the next reason to matter. And in that stillness, you realize something radical. You're not broken. You're just done performing. And now that you've stopped acting, something ancient wakes up inside you. Not the mask, not the myth, the man. He's not loud, not charming, not perfect, but he's rooted. He doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks to be true. He doesn't seduce. He doesn't impress. He doesn't need the room to affirm his presence, because his presence already fills the room. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the sovereign man, not a king in gold, a man who rules only one thing, himself. And here's the paradox. The more you own your truth, the more others feel the need to run from theirs. People will call you distant, arrogant, too much. But they're not describing you. They're describing what they can no longer control. You've become a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. They just reflect. So the world will try to distort your clarity. They'll beg you to wear the old mask again, because your wholeness makes their fragmentation too obvious. But don't go back. Not now. Because the woman who truly sees you, she's not looking for a mask. She's done with her own. She won't need you to carry her pain. She'll carry her own. And when she stands beside you, it won't be because she needs saving. It'll be because she finally sees someone who doesn't need to be saved either. No contracts, no roles, No hidden agreements. Just presence. Just truth. And in that space, love doesn't chain you. It frees you. Because now, when you say, "I love you," you're not asking to be filled. You're offering wholeness. And she'll feel it. Not in her ears, in her bones. Because when two people meet without masks, they don't complete each other. They witness each other. Two flames standing side by side, not merging, not consuming, just burning. And most will never get here. They'll keep trading masks for intimacy, keep settling for comfort over truth, keep mistaking performance for passion. But not you, because you walked through the fire. You didn't run from the ashes. You didn't chase another stage to stand on. You stood still. You stayed silent. You remembered. And now, you are not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. So let me leave you with this. What if the man you've always been looking for has been waiting behind your eyes all along? Now it's your turn. Which part of you was never loved because you were too afraid to show it? Tell me in the comments, not for attention, for liberation. Because someone else out there is still living in the role you just buried. And your story might be the permission they've been waiting for. So don't whisper it, write it. And if you felt this, subscribe. I won't promise answers, but I'll ask the questions no one else dares to. And sometimes, that's all it takes to finally become real.